everybody. Welcome on in. I'm your host, Bull Muscle. We got ourselves a good little consultation question, so let's dive right in. So, pretty simple question, actually. For this one, we'll be shirtless because it's related to the pecs, and it's related to the front delts. So it's actually kind of useful to have that for visual reference. So, let's talk about this just a bit. Aloha, Bull Muscle. I was wondering, based off of your numbers and my numbers, what the difference should be between my incline press, ideally, and my bench press. I've found that I think my incline press is proportionally weaker compared to my bench press, and I think this is because, due to my hobbies in other sports, my triceps are relatively overdeveloped, as are the rest of my arms, compared to my delts and my pecs. He goes on to say, he can reliably hit 185 on bench for sets of 10 with no real problems. Good form, not even any back arch. Like, he could even Larson press it and it'd be okay. But incline, he's really grinding to get 4 or 5. So, and he's asking me, what are your numbers and what do you think is ideal for this? So, this is a great question. I've been asked this for different exercises, but never for bench to incline. So let's talk about this. Now, in one of my previous videos, I've mentioned tier list rankings for push days, and you'll note that bench and incline were a lot higher than decline. The client here, the consultee, mentions decline and agrees with me in general that it doesn't matter as much. Like, he could do more on decline, which does support the hypothesis that his triceps are quite strong relative to maybe his upper pecs and his front delts. Needed that, thirsty after this morning's workout. But what I would say to you, Mr. Consultee, is that in general, you're not too far off. Here's where my numbers are for what it's worth. I've never been asked what my max on incline is. I've never tested what my max on incline is. I don't really see a reason to. You could. There's no reason you couldn't. But I typically tend to do incline for sets of 10. You know, most people tend to do incline more for medium to high level of reps and tend to save the really explosive stuff for flat bench or decline. It seems to me like you could use a little bit more on your incline, but looking at my own numbers, for flat bench, you know, you're saying you're reliably hitting sets of 10 with no real problems at 185. For me, this number, depending on the day, is anywhere between 250 and 275. If I were to put 250 on, and I'm using 250 because I think that's the heaviest I've really ever done with incline. If I were to put 250 on the incline, first off, I almost never do incline as the first thing in my workout, so I'm not hitting it fresh the same way I am with bench. So I would assume I'd be able to get a few more fresh. If I were to hit 250 on incline, the only times I've done it, I wasn't fresh, and I was hitting around 5, actually. So I'm kind of about where you're at in terms of the delta, the gap in poundage, or the gap in reps at the same poundage, I should say. However, right, that gap in reps is at a higher weight, so it's proportionally a bit less for me than it is for you. I would say if you're able to get a confident 10 at 185 on flat bench, you should be able to get a confident 5 to 6 on incline press at that same weight. And it sounds like you were able to get 5, but it was really grindy. I think you're actually doing okay on that. The other one I would recommend, if you really are concerned that your incline press is not as strong as your flat bench. So, right, what's the difference? Flat bench is going to work primarily your pecs with a little bit on the triceps, right? And a little bit on the front delts. Incline press is going to work a little bit less on the triceps, a little bit less on the lower pecs, more on the upper pecs, and a lot more on the front delts, right? Because if you think about it, right, the shoulder press, as an example, is basically taking your pecs completely out of it, still hitting your triceps some, but it's almost entirely focused on your deltoids. They're all pressing movements, right? You're pushing the weight. That's what makes the basis of a push workout, is pressing movements. Bench, incline, decline, shoulder press, behind the neck press, Klokov press, Arnold press, dumbbell bench. You get it, right? Skull crushers, JM press, close grip bench, more for your triceps. Where I'm going with this is, it seems to me like what I would do if I were you is compare where you're hitting. I would compare the delta between your incline press and your bench press, and then match that, or compare that delta with the delta between your incline press and your shoulder press, right? So using my own numbers for a minute here, if I'm looking for sets of 10, reliable, can crank out sets of 10, no real big issues. For bench, for me, that's somewhere between 250 and 275 on a given day. For incline, it's somewhere between 205 and 235 on a given day, depending on how fresh I am, right? These are, if I'm fresh, it's a little bit closer to 275 for bench. It's a little closer to 235 for incline. And for shoulder, it's between 165 and the target's 185. I can't claim that yet. Probably, I'd say 155 and 170. 165 goes up for 10 pretty reliably for me. Usually that's fresh. I'm going to try and get to 185 on that. So, right, the delta between bench and incline is, let's go fresh to fresh to fresh, compare apples to apples, would be 275 to 225 for me. So that's 50 pounds. For you, right, you gave me difference in reps, same weight, but 5 reps. And I'm just about at that same point. I don't particularly feel like my chest is lacking in the upper area versus the lower. I think my chest is pretty well proportioned. So to me, I don't think your incline's all that bad. I think maybe you're being a little bit harsh on yourself when it comes to incline press. Now, what I will tell you is, compared to my pecs are, if you asked me what my best feature was, standing up, I did just eat, so the abs aren't looking great. But if you asked me what my best feature was in my body, I would say it's the pecs every single time. I would therefore mention that my incline press to shoulder press, the delta between those two exercises is larger than incline to bench press, and I'm trying to fix that. So if you think your incline press is maybe not quite where you'd like it to be versus your bench press, the answer may be to hit shoulder press a bit more. For me, right, if you're hitting a shoulder press really well, that means your front delts are going to be able to put a lot more into an incline press. An incline press is, again, it's kind of a mix between a front barbell press and a front bench press. So for me, taking those numbers again, delta between 10 reps at bench and 10 reps at incline is about 50 pounds, give or take. From incline to shoulder press is about 60 pounds. And moreover, it's 60 pounds over a smaller base, which tells me I have more work to do on my delts than I do on my pecs. And that would check out. I think my shoulder press, I don't think my delts are anywhere near as impressive as my pecs are. I've got okay delts, right? Front delts, you can see a pretty good chunk of meat here. Where I've really noticed it and where I've been improving a lot is mid and rear delts. So rear delts, right, that's working exercises back here. For that, you're going to be looking at reverse pec deck. Really easy if you're already doing chest flies to just, boom, hit that in. Laying down side shoulder raises. So if you're laying down on the side of a bench, right, you're coming up like that, that's really going to, I'll go this way, show off the actual muscle work. Try not to fall over on this. So let's say you're leaning over on a side bench, you come up like this, you're going to work your rear delts. Other really great options for rear and the top parts of your delts are behind the neck press. So if you're behind the neck pressing, and there's really no way for me to get a great angle on this, but right, if you're doing a frontal shoulder press, you're going to be working, right, the front side of your delts. You'll be hitting this muscle right here a lot. Because think about it, right? You're pushing up, but the bar is in front of your face. You can bring your head back, and you should bring your head back a bit when you're doing barbell bent or barbell shoulder press, but ultimately you're still going to bias it towards your front delts. This is where the behind the neck press comes in handy, because it's going to work a little bit more of the top side delt and a little bit more of the rear delt. Another really, really good one that you in particular I would recommend giving a shot out and giving a try with is the Klokov press. I've only discovered this exercise recently, but it has been torching my delts. Absolutely love it. Really, really strongly recommend it. It's just a variation on the behind the neck press. So the Klokov press is a behind the neck press done at a snatch width. In other words, you go super wide on the grip, you stand up, so you're going out here and you're pressing like that. Consider it this way. So if you're doing a narrow grip bench press, right, you're going to be working your triceps a lot more. A close grip bench press works your triceps more than a conventional bench press, which works it more than a wide grip bench press. A wide grip bench press, you're really working the outside of your pecs, right? Well, the same concept can work for a shoulder press. A close grip, if you were to do like a super close grip shoulder press, assuming you wouldn't be hitting your face, you know, maybe use I don't know what, dumbbells or a bent bar or something like that, you're going to be hitting your triceps a little bit more than a conventional, and then a conventional versus behind the neck, which usually for me, I've noticed behind the neck, I have to go with a slightly wider grip. Otherwise, I just feels really awkward. And then the same with the Klokov. So Klokov press, really going to be hitting those delts a lot. What I have found with the Klokov press is just absolutely shoots up the top side of my delts. So I would say perhaps if you find that there's a bigger delta between your shoulder press and your incline press than there is your incline press and your bench press, that may be your issue. It may well be that it's not that your pecs are weaker proportionally to your triceps, but it may be that your front delts are weaker proportionally to your pecs. And that might be causing a bit more of an issue than you think. Your front delts do get activated a good chunk, especially on an incline press. And obviously the angle at which the incline is situated at will change the degree to which certain muscles are being activated versus others. So my advice to you here is take a look at your shoulder press numbers and give the Klokov press a try, first off. Take a look at your shoulder press numbers and compare them to your incline press to see, okay, if you find a bigger gap in between your, if you find a bigger gap between your shoulder press and your incline press than you do your incline press and your bench press, especially if it's bigger in absolute numbers, that might be an indicator that it's your front delts that are the limiting factor on your incline. And if that's the case, try a few more shoulder exercises. I really love the Klokov press just because it feels really, really good. It burns, it hurts. Like there are times of the Klokov press too, you get light fucking headed, really, really solid. So that would be my recommendation to you. You didn't give me your shoulder press numbers, but I have a general idea of where they are since we've talked a lot. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can hit 135 for a couple reps on shoulder press. So it would check out then the delta between shoulder press to incline press is a little bit bigger than incline press to bench press, which is the problem I suffer from. And I certainly would say my delts are not quite as built out as my pecs are. I think you would agree with that. So that's a really great question. I got that, it was a consultation that I got late this morning, actually, even while I was working out. I'm like, I have to make this video. Really, really great question. So very happy that you went and sent that in. Let me actually send this video link to you. Where is it? There's the link. I'm gonna send this to him by DM. Glad you made it. It was a cool topic. Yeah, Sterling Hollywood, welcome on in with the melty face. Cookies and cream, always good to see you. Man, you are like one of the most reliable people. Love that. Always, it makes me happy to see you in here. You're a regular. Tell you what, Cookies, if you ever want a consultation, you've been in here so often that I will give you one for free. Like, you don't even have to plug my shit. I will just do it because you're a regular, and I really appreciate the people who they'll get the ping roll in the Discord, and then they'll actually show up, and they'll contribute, and it's very much appreciated in a way maybe that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people will lurk and then complain that I'm not doing what they want me to do, as though I'm a psychic and that I should know, which is just dumb. I gotta come up with one then. I mean, yeah. Just keep that in your back pocket, I'll say. But yeah, for those of you who want any further consultations, be they about lifting, diet, or anything else, right up there, askbullmuscle@gmail.com. It is, you have to pay me a fee. Either you can pay me a couple of dollars, or, and this is what I would recommend, just plug my channel on whatever social media you use. That's like a 20-second task. The reason I do that, though, is because what I've found, and I will keep saying this, is every time I've given out free advice, I've gotten ignored. There has to be a psychological cost attached, even if it's minuscule, a psychological cost attached to the advice I gave, so that way people feel like they've wasted their time or money if they don't follow the advice. That's what I'm getting after. If I'm giving out advice, I want people to follow it. That would be the point. Anyway, there we go. Sent it off to him because it's a really good question, and it speaks to a bit of something that I think a lot of people have, which is your body is different. Be it on right, your individual bodies are going to respond differently to different stimuli. But other individual bodies are going to they're going to develop differently too. Some people are naturally going to have stronger muscles in some areas based on genetics than others. Now, you can overcome this with training for the most part. There are some genetic things like defects that obviously change the equation, but we're talking for the average here, the normal person. In those events, right, for me, I've always been a bit of a bench bro. For me, chest development came early and it came naturally. Now, a part of that was, maybe it was genetic, but another part of it was, I grew up, when I was lifting, sometimes I'd lift with my dad. I know, shocker, right? The teenager who actually spent time with his parents and listened to what they had to say turned out really well. You mean he didn't listen to the bullshit the teachers were feeding him, and he listened to his mom and dad who stayed together and stayed married and didn't get a divorce? Whoa. It's almost like if you're a parent, you should fucking commit to spending time with your child, and that matters more than anything else. Sorry, I'm going on a rant. We're not going down that rabbit hole today. That is an irrelevant topic, but I'm just saying I had an awesome dad, and I miss him tremendously. But thanks to his service in the United States military, he basically did not have ligaments in one of his knees, which meant he couldn't really squat. He would do calf exercises and he'd run, but like physically there was nothing there, right, to put a load on for his knees. So, if you have that kind of injury where you have literally had a bunch of the shit in your knee surgically removed, okay, you have an excuse not to squat. All the rest of you motherfuckers need to get under a squat rack, okay? Don't tell me, oh, I've got sciatica. Fuck off. Hit the fucking squat rack. Did you damage one of your knees in a literal war? No? Then quit making excuses and get under the goddamn squat rack. But because of that, whenever I'd lift with him, it was always upper body for the most part. I would just schedule my lower body days when I wasn't able to lift with him. But because of that, we'd hit bench a whole fucking lot. And I still remember I was 16 going on 17 right before our move to my dad's final stop in his career. This was junior year of high school. We were stationed at Offutt Air Force Base, Omaha, Nebraska, which, by the way, you want to talk about, again, fucking miserable place to be in the winter. But we were luckily enough stationed on base, so I had to trudge a couple miles through the snow and the wind, but I had the Offutt Fieldhouse, which is where the B-29 boxcar, the one that dropped Fat Man on Nagasaki, was assembled in the 1940s. They kept the hangar up and just built the best fucking gym in the world in it. And before you say, oh, that's just an extravagant military expense. No, it's not. Because you need to keep your troops in good shape, and there is nothing to do outside in Nebraska in the winter. So 100%, that was government money well spent right there, as the Offutt Fieldhouse, keeping that bad boy up. So many good memories there. But we'd lift on occasion, but I'd just schedule my leg days for when he wasn't able to, because he worked really fucking hard. He was in U.S. Strategic Command back then, and that was when the previous North Korean tyrant died and got replaced with the current North Korean tyrant. And predictably, that means we're on high alert to make sure North Koreans don't do something even dumber than usual. So, my dad had to bust ass in that job. But he was working 70, 80-hour weeks, sometimes more. He would still find time to hit the gym. And when he would let me know, hey, I'm going to try and hit the gym at this time, and I would trudge through the fucking snow to meet him there. Because I cared about spending time with my dad, and he cared about his own body, but he also cared about spending time with me. And that's what you should, if you are an aspiring father, that is the kind of relationship you need to put sweat equity, that means time, into with each child of yours. And it's not fucking easy. My dad did it, and that's part of why I'm a success. You're damn fucking right I'm proud of what my parents did. But they set the gold standard on that one. A standard I look to the future and very much question whether or not I'll ever be able to measure up to. But that's my own personal introspective problems right there. But either way, the point is that, I became a bench bro fairly early, but I think it was also genetics. I think I personally happened to respond really, really well to pec stimulus. I think my pecs just grew a lot faster than the rest of my body. I was at the point where senior year, I could bench almost as much as I could squat, which is not good. But it meant, that year in football, wasn't the best run blocker. But I was so good at pass blocking, they just kind of kept me there as an offensive tackle, even though I weighed 195 soaking wet. I was also really good at getting away with holding. That one, I will 100% confess that. Defensive ends did not like me. Also, I will hold this position until the day I die. Defensive linemen are the dumbest fucking players on the field. Offensive linemen are the smartest. And let me explain. D linemen have the easiest job in the world. The simplest, not the easiest, the simplest job in the world. Get to the ball. That's it. If you're a defensive tackle, plug the gap, and if the running back comes to you, tackle his ass. If you're a defensive end, okay, it's slightly more complicated. Get to the ball if it's a running play, contain the edge if it's a passing play. Contain the edge if it's a running play, get to the quarterback if it's a passing play. That's it. That's your job. Very, very easy. Really, you have to have if you have an IQ of 75, you can play defensive. You can play defensive tackle or defensive end. It's just not that hard a position. That being said, the best physical specimens in terms of strength on the field, almost always defensive linemen. Defensive linemen will almost always outlift offensive linemen because they they're the brutes. The guys who are not very bright, but you would never ever want to fuck with them, those are your D linemen. O linemen generally tend to be a bit smarter because, especially, this goes the most if you're a center. Center might be the most cerebral position on the field. Everybody thinks the quarterback's the smartest guy in the field. The quarterback's got to be smart, but a quarterback is only as good as his center. I really do believe that. A center is basically the quarterback of the O-line. He almost has to, at an offensive line's best, a center is basically the brain for a collective hive mind that is the O-line. They can almost telepathically tell, okay, this guy might be coming down for a blitz. It looks like we might be having a stunt here. And there's a lot of film that goes into that. And you can ask guys on a lot of really successful teams, they'll say, yeah, the O-linemen were always kind of a clique. They were like the little old ladies knitting in the corner. They would always be talking and they'd be fucking weird about it. But they were a unit. You couldn't break them apart. That's usually how O-linemen are. O-line is kind of like that. The O-line guys, again, often score really, really high on like the Wonderlic test. I think it's the one that NFL uses. And the D linemen score a lot lower for a reason. Again, no, it's I'll put it this way. O-line is like... I'm going to piss so many people off by saying this. O-line is like... Not the Air Force, but it's like... D-line is like the Marines. You don't need to be the brightest bulb in the box. You just need to be an absolute physical specimen to play D-line. The Marines are kind of that way. You might be eating crayons, but you are going to be in better shape and be able to put up with more physical bullshit than anyone else in the troop. O-line is more like the Navy. Maybe even the Air Force. But I feel like, most O-linemen aren't, physically as weak as most people in the Air Force are. Hey, I grew up in an Air Force family. I can make that joke. The Navy, I'd say the Navy because the weirdest motherfuckers are in the Navy. You know what? Actually, that is really good. Like submarine guys. O-linemen are like submarine guys. They're a fucking another... Like the military, every branch of the military has its own weirdness. But even among the military, submarine guys are an extra level of weird. You have to be in a fucking confined tube for weeks on end or days on end. It's a submarine is the most isolated a human can be on this planet, short of being on the International Space Station. Freaking wild shit. Definitely, I would say that would be my comparison there. They're both incredibly important, and you got to have good versions of both. But the level of intellect required to play offensive line is far higher. Play offensive line well, I should say, is far higher than to play defensive line. I really do believe that. There are just not that many bright defensive linemen. There are incredibly gifted athlete defensive linemen. If I wanted to point to intelligent players on defense, middle linebacker is number one. Free and strong safety, these are guys who have to make reads and figure things out as they develop on the fly. Definitely would say the middle linebacker and safety are usually the most intelligent positions on the field for defense, if you ask me. Cornerbacks generally have to be smarter than wide receivers, but not at the same level as a safety does. And then offense, center's got to be the smartest. Of the O-line, guards are usually the dumbest, but they're also usually the strongest. Your guards are usually, the guys who need the they need the pushing power to go up against those big, heavy D linemen. O-tackles are usually the most athletic in terms of speed, agility, things of that nature. And they're somewhere in between center and guard when it comes to intellect, usually. And then tight ends are weird. Some tight ends genuinely kind of fuck with the O-linemen, and they're usually the blocking tight ends. So they're kind of like honorary members. Then you get the candy-ass receiving tight end that doesn't want to block, and he gets shunned from the O-line group badly. And usually, the receiving tight end doesn't want to be part of that group anyway. He wants to be in with the receivers, but he's a bit too big and a bit too fat and a bit too slow to do it. That's just good times of football. But if there are any D linemen in the chat, tell me, fucking fight me if you disagree with this. But I'm not saying the D linemen were bad or anything. I'm just saying you don't have to be smart to play defensive tackle. Look, okay, one of the most effective D tackles before he got fat and lazy was Albert Haynesworth. Albert Haynesworth was not an intelligent man. He was very good at his job when he was with the Titans and before he became a tubby fuck and did nothing on the Redskins. But, right, Albert Haynesworth, not the brightest dude. I don't think Albert Haynesworth would have made a good offensive lineman, even though he had the physical strength to be one, and then some. I mean, the dude was an absolute monster in the mid-2000s. But I'm just using an example here. And there are a couple smart defensive linemen. They're very few and far in between, but they tend to be some of the best of all time. What was his name? Jones. I forget his first name. The guy who pioneered the head slap technique. Brilliant. Smart fucking dude. At least on that account in terms of football smarts. But you don't see a lot of innovating happening there. Let's get back on a topic here. Bro, I'm basically done, actually. I already answered the question. Question was the delta between incline and bench versus incline. Like, what should an ideal delta between incline and bench be? I would say, in general, if you can hit 10 reps easily on a weight on a bench, assuming you have no major injuries that you're working with on any of those accounts, then you should be able to hit at least 5, maybe 5 to 6 of those same reps on incline. That's generally what I would say, but it really does vary. Shit. Actually, my modeling director just let me know. Let's see here. Okay, looks like I got a bounce, actually. My modeling director's here, and we're going to have some lunch. So this is unfortunate because it seems like people are actually coming in now. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have, folks. As always, make good decisions. Those good decisions form your actions. Those actions form your habits. Those habits form your values. Those values form an ethos. Be the guide star through the rough waters of life. Consultations. If you guys want to ask me a question, askbullmuscle@gmail.com. It's happening right up there. Shoots, we come in for a hug. See y'all around. There we go. There it is, right there, top right corner. askbullmuscle@gmail.com. Definitely doesn't take much. You'll get a good return on your time spent writing. Take it easy.